Columbia, we're just a short paddle from LNG Canada, the country's first ever large-scale liquefied natural gas export facility. It's a big deal.
You don't get a lot of firsts these days, but for the first time, Canadian liquefied natural gas is heading overseas. Fuel from the LNG Canada export terminal in Kitimat, BC, is now sailing towards
demand is. In the case of LNG, Asia's the primary market, but now Europe, with the loss of Russian gas, is also a significant market. So
June 30th, 2025, marked a monumental turning point in Canadian energy history, as the country proudly shipped its very first LNG cargo to Asia, officially breaking away from more than 30 years of complete reliance on U.S. pipeline infrastructure. For decades, Canada had no choice but to funnel approximately 8.8 billion cubic feet of natural gas every single day into its southern neighbor's system, generating a massive $8 billion in revenue in 2024 alone. Yet, this economic dependency came at a steep cost: political vulnerability. Donald Trump's sweeping tariff policies placed Canada in a precarious position, turning a once profitable trade into a high-risk liability capable of causing deep and lasting damage to the national economy. What followed was a seismic shift in energy geopolitics. Viewers had never witnessed such a bold and calculated break from tradition. Trump was blindsided, left with no leverage, while Asian energy giants, China, Japan, and South Korea, rushed in to secure long-term access to Canada's newly available LNG supply, delivered with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Can this decisive moment completely reshape the dynamics of the US-Canada trade standoff? Watch today's video to explore this groundbreaking development, and don't forget to subscribe to Deep State and hit that notification bell so you never miss a beat on global economic and geopolitical updates. The backdrop to this energy revolution was a rapidly deteriorating trade relationship between the United States and Canada. Tensions had been building with no signs of resolution. Even after both sides tentatively agreed to pause any new tariffs for 30 days, Washington had already launched a full-on economic offensive. A wave of preemptive tariffs was imposed on nearly every category of Canadian imports. On March 4, 2025, the Trump administration enacted a brutal 25% tariff on the bulk of Canada's exports to the U.S., with a targeted 10% tariff on vital energy products, including natural gas. Panic quickly spread throughout Canada's oil and gas industry. The domestic market, which had previously consumed nearly all of the country's exported gas, suddenly found itself outpriced and uncompetitive in its largest and most familiar market. To better understand what's at stake, it's important to grasp what LNG, liquefied natural gas, is. LNG is regular natural gas that has been supercooled to -165 degrees Celsius, turning it into a liquid and shrinking its volume by over 600 times. This transformation makes it drastically easier and more efficient to ship in bulk by tanker to regions lacking pipeline connections. Not only is LNG far cleaner than traditional fuels like coal or oil, but it's also an essential component in electricity generation, industrial chemical production, and home heating. With global demand for clean energy rising, especially in Asia, LNG is no longer just a fuel. It's a strategic asset that directly influences national economic strength and energy security. Trump's 10% energy tariff left Canada exposed like never before. Prior to this, Canada had relied on cross-border gas exports totaling 8.8 billion cubic feet daily, bringing in $8 billion in 2024 alone. While 10% may seem minor compared to the 25% applied elsewhere, the damage was immediate. U.S. domestic gas producers, protected from such tariffs, enjoyed prices based on the Henry Hub benchmark averaging $3.746 per million British thermal units, MMBTU. In contrast, Canada's own AEO index averaged just $0.714 per MMBTU, less than a fifth of U.S. pricing. When tariffs were tacked on, Canada's gas lost its already fragile price advantage, jeopardizing dozens of mid- and long-term trade contracts with American buyers. This triggered a domino effect throughout the supply chain. The once stable flow of Canadian gas was thrown into uncertainty. U.S. buyers, long dependent on Canada's affordable and reliable gas supply, now face tough decisions: either pay more for American-produced LNG or take their chances with European and Asian markets, where transport costs and delivery times were significantly higher. While U.S. buyers struggled, energy buyers across Asia especially in China, Japan, and South Korea, were quick to capitalize. They immediately took notice when, on June 30, 2025, Canada successfully delivered its first LNG shipment to Asia. This shipment bypassed American tariffs entirely and opened a new supply corridor that changed the game for global energy sourcing. That's why the $40 billion LNG Canada project has emerged as an essential lifeline not just for the country's energy sector, but for its overall economic independence. The project is at the heart of Canada's urgent mission to diversify export markets and avoid over-reliance on U.S. access. In addition to losing competitiveness, Canada had to wrestle with sky-high operating and infrastructure costs in the remote terrain of northern British Columbia. These costs are far greater than those of comparable projects on the U.S. Gulf Coast. Add to that Canada's tighter environmental regulations and elevated interest rates, and the financial pressure ballooned. The project's partners Shell, Petronas, PetroChina, Mitsubishi, and Kogas made it clear, expansion to double capacity would only happen if secure, long-term offtake contracts could be locked in from buyers in Asia and Europe. Put simply, Trump's aggressive tariff strike didn't just reduce Canada's access to the U.S. market. It forced Ottawa to accelerate the search for an entirely new maritime route to Asia. Canada's abundant low-cost gas reserves, combined with tariff pressure and global demand, created a defining moment. LNG had become both a potential economic safety net and a source of immense risk. The only question remaining: can Mark Carney guide this bold energy turnaround to success? The fallout from U.S. tariffs pushed Canada to pursue a radically new direction, one embodied by the LNG Canada project. This $40 billion mega-project, backed by Shell, Petronas, PetroChina, Mitsubishi, and Kogas, was constructed at Kitimat Port in British Columbia, with the mission of turning natural gas from the Montney Formation into liquefied natural gas for export. Despite mountainous terrain, weather extremes, and swelling construction costs, the team overcame obstacle after obstacle, completing the 670-kilometer coastal gas-linked pipeline. This crucial infrastructure now links gas-rich Dawson Creek to the west coast, unlocking a direct pathway to liquefaction facilities. The strategic advantage of this location is massive. Kitimat's Pacific coastline allows LNG Canada to bypass the Panama Canal entirely. What used to take 20 days can now be shipped to Japan, China, or South Korea in just 10, cutting transit time in half and avoiding politically sensitive or congested shipping routes. Beyond logistics, the project also shines in its commitment to ESG, environmental, social, governance, standards. To ensure the development benefited more than just shareholders, the joint venture inked over $5.88 billion Canadian dollars in contracts with local businesses in the Haisla Nation, an indigenous community deeply rooted in the region. Over 50,000 Canadian jobs were created during the 7-year build-out, and local contractors were even granted equity stakes in the Coastal GasLink project. This gave the Haisla community both economic empowerment and a meaningful role in the resource development occurring on their ancestral lands. On the technical front, the Kitimat liquefaction facility is equipped with 2 advanced liquefaction trains that, combined, can produce 14 million tons of LNG per year, enough to meet rising energy demands across Asia and parts of Europe. The equipment was sourced from global leaders, JGC of Japan and Fluor from the United States, and is powered by British Columbia's abundant clean hydroelectricity. As a result, LNG Canada stands out as one of the world's lowest emission LNG producers, setting a new standard in the race for sustainable energy exports. No major success ever comes without its own set of challenges. The LNG Canada project, though groundbreaking, faces steep headwinds. Construction and operational costs in the harsh, frigid conditions of northern British Columbia are significantly higher than similar ventures along the more temperate U.S. Gulf Coast. On top of that, Canada's strict environmental regulations have compelled the joint venture to invest heavily in advanced emissions controls and robust biodiversity protections, initiatives that, while crucial, add layers of complexity and cost. To offset some of this financial burden, the provincial government introduced carbon tax breaks and sales tax incentives, hoping to keep investor confidence high. Yet, these fiscal incentives have stirred public debate, raising concerns over whether corporate beneficiaries are contributing enough to local communities and living up to their responsibilities on social and environmental fronts. Despite these tensions, the symbolic and strategic departure of that first LNG cargo from Kitimat Port sent a powerful message: Canada is no longer trapped by its historic dependency on U.S. pipelines. Instead, the country has launched itself into a new era. One where China, Japan, and South Korea, all of which are eagerly pursuing clean and cost-efficient energy sources, have become Canada's newest energy allies. This move isn't just a retaliatory gesture in response to Trump-era tariffs. It's a transformational pivot that redefines Canada's standing in the global energy arena. Amid today's energy crisis and sweeping international sanctions on Russian gas, Asian nations are racing to lock in access to clean, geopolitically neutral LNG. That urgency has created an enormous opportunity for Canada to emerge as a critical supplier. Japan, South Korea, and China have each unveiled aggressive energy transition plans. Japan, which relies on imports for more than 80% of its electricity generation, has pledged to acquire at least 20 million tons of LNG annually beginning in 2026. South Korea is planning a massive 50% expansion of its LNG storage capacity over the next 10 years, while China has already secured multiple long-term contracts to ensure uninterrupted supplies ahead of the coming winter. It was against this backdrop of soaring Asian demand that Canada made history. On June 30, 2025, the LNG carrier Gaslog Glasgow departed from Kitimat loaded with 2.66 million tons of premium Canadian LNG. This inaugural shipment not only opened a brand new maritime energy corridor but also bypassed both the U.S. pipeline system and the often congested Panama Canal. Thanks to its strategic location, the route now trims transit time from roughly 20 days to just 10, translating to tens of millions of US dollars in shipping savings per voyage. Starting in 2026, LNG Canada aims to operate more than 170 such voyages annually, supplying key Asian ports in Japan, South Korea, and Singapore. This aggressive shipping schedule is poised to set a new benchmark for Canadian gas exports. But this isn't just about commercial velocity, it's a bold geopolitical statement. Canada has successfully sidestepped the economic stranglehold of US tariffs and the infrastructure monopoly of cross-border pipelines. Asia's pivot toward cleaner, neutral energy options has unlocked extraordinary demand, propelling LNG Canada toward full utilization of its initial 14 million tons per year capacity. That surge in momentum has now inspired serious discussion among stakeholders about expanding to a second phase. Industry giants Shell, Petronas, PetroChina, Mitsubishi, and Kogas are currently evaluating a doubling of capacity to 28 million tons per year. If approved, this expansion could catapult Canada into the ranks of the world's top 5 LNG exporters. According to Reuters, a final investment decision on Phase 2 is expected shortly before the current facility hits full operational output, a move designed to seize Asia's current buying frenzy before momentum slows. This new energy corridor not only unlocks additional revenue streams, it also drastically reduces Canada's geopolitical vulnerability. Just a short time ago, nearly 100% of Canada's natural gas exports, roughly 8.6 billion cubic feet per day, flowed through American pipelines. When the US slapped a 10% import tariff on Canadian gas, domestic US prices soared, and countless trade contracts were either paused or renegotiated. Now, with over 170 direct LNG voyages planned to Asia annually, Canada is no longer held hostage to foreign tariffs or infrastructure choke points. In fact, Canadian gas is earning praise from Eastern buyers for its price competitiveness and supply reliability. Nevertheless, serious hurdles remain. Expanding to a 28 million ton capacity demands tens of billions in new capital investment. It also requires navigating more stringent environmental regulations and dealing with the high logistical costs associated with building in British Columbia's remote, rugged Northern Territory. Fortunately, a combination of provincial tax incentives, carbon offset programs, and strong partnerships with Indigenous communities, especially the Haisla Nation, is helping to clear a path forward. This model of shared economic benefit and sustainable development is giving Canada a unique competitive edge. As LNG Canada vessels continue to dock in Yokohama, Busan, and Singapore, a critical question lingers: can Canada maintain its growth trajectory and meet Asia's soaring energy demands? Or will this bold pivot trigger a fresh escalation in US-Canada trade tensions? In conclusion, Canada's choice to sever the energy umbilical cord to the United States and pivot its natural gas exports toward Asia represents far more than a one-off shipment. It's a major inflection point in the country's long-term energy and foreign policy strategy. By liberating itself from pipeline dependency and tariff vulnerability, Canada is not only securing new markets but also amplifying its influence in global energy circles. However, the real test lies ahead. The ambitious second phase of LNG Canada, aiming to double capacity to 28 million tons per year, will determine whether Canada can solidify its place alongside LNG superpowers like Qatar, the US, and Australia. Enormous capital costs, aggressive carbon reduction targets, and evolving environmental standards all pose significant challenges. Still, the stage is set for Canada to become a leader in clean energy exports if it can weather the storm and scale with purpose. What do you think? Is Canada on the verge of leading the global LNG race, or will it get caught in the crosscurrents of fierce competition? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Deep State so you never miss the next big development.